Hello, everyone. Let's get started. So, welcome to the session. Ever since last 7 years I've been in AX, there have been one ask from customers, partners, and ISVs about the automated testing tool. And we did some prototype. In June, we released the CTP1 version of this tool, and we got some good feedback from the partners who tried and a couple of customers. And we released the CTP2 version last month, which I'll be showing in the demo. It's available for download. It's much stable, much reliable, and ready to use by anyone who is wanting to use it. The thing is, it works on the R2CU7 or the higher versions like R3, R3CU8. So I believe everyone is on the later versions, CU7 or R3 or later version. Yeah. Okay. So let's get started. The presentation of this is very minimal. It's like a couple of slides trying to explain like how it works. The majority part is in the demo, and then a lot of it is question answer, answering all your questions, what your expectations are, and how the tool can resolve it. So we'll focus more time on demo, and I'll go over the presentation relatively quickly. Before we get started, how many of you are domain experts, like who are involved in regular testing, day-to-day testing? So mostly technical people here? Okay. It's actually better for the domain experts because there's no coding involved in this. That was one of the goals for us. So let's start over and see how we... I'm Harmeet Singh. I'm program manager for this tool. I did the development part as well. So there were a couple of goals which I was given around a year and a half back. First one was to enable customer and partners to generate the business processes automatically and then run them automatically with minimal maintenance. And minimal maintenance was the key part here, because when we used to write hard coding for every step of execution, with every change in the version, like with any field added or deleted, it had to be redone. There was like huge amount of time spent on maintenance. So playing them back reliably with minimal maintenance was one of the key goals. Significantly reduce testing cost and effort. Manually testing during the build, during the development process can be very time consuming. You all know that we have to test like same scenarios 20 times, 30 times, or much more. Make the playback engine flexible to the product changes. It's relevant to the first one with minimal maintenance, because if we hard code a lot of things in the playback engine, it is not flexible to the customizations we are doing. It's not flexible to other things. So our key here is to make it flexible. So a lot of the code which runs is generated at runtime, and it executed at that time as well. Enable the playback engine to be independent of any specific application. This was the key feedback which we received from the CTP1. And the thing was that some people were using MS Test for the test case management. Some were using normal Excel. Some as home developed applications to manage their test cases. So they wanted to integrate or run this tool from anywhere. They didn't want to have a separate engine altogether from where they can run the test. So it can be it is made independent in this CTP2 version. There are 4 key processes. First one is to record the scenario using task recorder. How many of you have used task recorder in AX? Great. So save a lot of my effort to explain how the task recorder works. So first is to record that scenario, then generate an Excel template for the business process. We added this Excel template generation around a year back in CU7, and the code behind that was not added because that time it was not ready. The key was like many customers and partners asked like, what is the use of this? We were earlier planning to release it a little bit sooner, but because of CU8 and other things, we released the CTP1 version actually in June, but that was, we got good feedback, so to incorporate the feedback, it took some time. And then fill in the values. User can fill in their values from the test scenarios which they have. And then play back the recorded scenario in any bill, any version. The 3 are green just because those were already in the product, like we released. There are some modifications done to that, but the process steps are the same. The 4th one is the key one which we have added and which we'll focus a lot more on today. This is just one of the screenshots. So how the tool works is, when we record a scenario, and a business process scenario will cover many forms, right? Generally, I've seen some of the while reviewing some of the tests from customer and partners, and one of the key feedback which I gave was, like, creating a customer is not a test. It can be a unit test, but it's not a business process test. So when generally the business process test will include a business process like creating a sales order and passing it through to the invoice or to receiving the payment or something more. If we have to just do one form, it is better. It can be done in unit tests, and there are other types of testing which we can use, which Microsoft have been shipping for a long time. So for every form which we pass through during our process, it will create a separate tab in the Excel template. So this example, screenshot example, is from order to cash scenario, order to invoice. For first, we open a form. If you have played around with the sales order, like creation of sales order, first a small form open up where we enter the customer number and some other information, and then we click OK, and we go to another form which we ask for item details and other line details for the customer for the order. So that's like first form is sales order. Overview tab was added on request from our internal teams because they wanted to use the same template for both manual and automated execution. They didn't want to have like a manual version and then automated execution. It was very difficult. So they could summarize the overview tab, like what the test is doing, incomplete, so that it can be also used for manual test, and whoever takes over can easily follow those. For every tab it can have 0 to 2 tables. Like this table, one table is shown here. So it can have 0 to 2 tables depending on how many fields or how much data we have changed. For example, if there is a normal form like a customer form or something, it will have only a header form, like it's a header type of form. So it will have one table. But if it's a sales order form which has header and the line details, so one header have multiple lines. So there will be 2 tables there, one for header information and one for the line details information. So for one header, we can add like 10 lines in there. So if we didn't change anything on the form, then it will still create a tab, but it will keep it empty. And earlier, we were hiding these empty tabs. But again, it was asked from internal teams that we should keep the tabs visible so that people can add their screenshots like for better understanding for manual execution. One of the things is that this is the information which is generated automatically. You can add it like screenshots, text, or whatever. It won't interfere with the automation. So to make it more readable, more understandable for manual execution, you can add whatever information on the tabs you have so that we can play it back manually or automatically. If you see that 5 fields are, when we'll go through the demo, the first 5 fields are the system fields which will be in all the tables, and we'll go over each field at a time. I can just brief a little bit now. Key is just a unique identifier for this row, which is, it can be any number 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, it doesn't matter. It's just a unique identifier for multiple records. For example, if I'm loading a chart of accounts, I want to create like 3 chart of accounts. I'll just give 1, 2, 3 records instead of having to write 3 test cases, right? So update record is whether to create a new record or edit an existing record. So sometimes you want to edit the existing record before proceeding. So we will have true or false here in the second field. Third, fourth, and fifth are to filter the record in a grid. For example, if I want to go from the customer list, I want to select like customer 1000. I'll give the grid name here. What is the name of the grid? What is the name of the key I want to filter on? And what is the value of the key I want to filter on? So that way I can filter on a particular record and then proceed with the business process. And other than that, there will be all the fields which have been modified either by the system or by the user. So in this form, there was only one field which was modified, customer number, but it can have n number of fields, any fields which are updated. In CDP1, we could only take one filter. Here, we in CDP2 we added option of adding multiple filters. So it can be with comma. So filter names can be customer number, comma, invoice account, and because it was one of the requirements which came in. Let's go to demo because that's where the meat of it is. And if there are questions, feel free to stop in between, and we'll go over at that time. It will be easy to explain and easy for you to like ask the question and understand it better as well. So we start task recorder. We create a new node because almost everyone had used task recorder, so I'll go through it a little bit quick. I'll start the task recorder, and now I can start my business process recording. So in this example, I'll be taking sales order. Well, so this is my first form, and I clicked the new sales order button. This is my first form, create sales order, where I will enter customer number. I can enter some other information, but that's right now not needed for the demo. And this is a new form which opened up. It's still a sales order form, but it's like the create sales order was just to enter the basic information, and then it adds the details for this. So I'll add one thing is that whichever fields which we change, they will be recorded. So if we have to use a sales order scenario in multiple ways, for example, we want to create a test sales order for different currencies or different tax groups and other information. So it will be better to add as much information in the one scenario template so that you can use the same template for multiple scenarios. You don't have to record multiple templates. And in the end, we'll show you how easy it is to modify the templates as well. So that way, if there's another thing is that I always recommend that we add 2 lines. And the reason for that is because when we add a second line, the system knows that I need to click the add line button. It records that I need to click the add line button. So I can use the same template for creating sales order with 1 line or sales order with 100 lines. I don't have to create multiple templates. One point to note here is that whatever keystrokes we are doing on the form, those are being recorded by the task recorder. I know a lot of the power users use a lot of shortcuts, and shortcuts will not be recorded by the task recorder. So it can cause problems when you're trying to play back. If you're like creating a new form without clicking a button and just saying Control N or something. And that is something to keep in mind, that anything which we are doing on the screen on the form will be recorded. If you are using backend shortcuts, that won't be recorded. That's okay. So here I can change whether it's based on picking list or all quantity, and for demo purposes, we'll keep it simple. I can change it to packing slip, or it doesn't matter. And now I created the invoice, and let's say I want to add a validation. I want to validate the voucher entries for this invoice. That's one example. We can validate a lot of things during the process, but I'll just show how we can add the validation, so you can add for any form or field as required. So I want to go to the vouchers. I want to validate whether all my entries are correct or not. One thing in validation is that mostly we view that whether this is correct, this looks correct, okay, we close down, right? We don't do any action on the forms for validation. So what the system will do is it knows that you opened this form for something. It will record that this form was opened. So there we have to go and manually create the table for validation values, and we'll take that in the example as well. Okay, and now we'll stop the task recorder. It'll take a few seconds here because it has to record video and all those things, even though we are not using video for our purposes. But because by default, task recorder records all the videos of what we did there, it'll take like 40 to 50 seconds to do that. Yeah, any question?
So it only records the video if you use advanced.
Sorry?
It only records the video if you've got the advanced setting on. Can you use basic and still have it work?
Basic, yes, it will work. As long as it is the CTP 7 or higher version, it doesn't matter which setting you are having, it will work.
Okay,
Yeah, it won't create the videos, yes. So it can be faster. So we will generate the template. It'll create an Excel template. For all the forms which we went through, it'll create a tab and it'll generate that template. For manual validations, we can add the data in the overview tab. Right now, for demo purposes, we'll just go through the automation part. So first was sales order was the list page which we open when we go to the sales order menu. There's a list page open. We didn't do anything. We just click the new sales order button. So that's why there's nothing in here. In the create sales order, we added like a customer number. So we say key is 1. It's just key is a unique identifier. It can be anything. And I give the customer number. It can be any. In the second, we added the lines. We added 2 lines here. The first 5 fields are standard. The others are the ones which were modified. And you might be saying that we only modified like few fields. Why are they showing a little bit more fields? Because there were some system updated fields as well when we entered the item number. There were a few system updated fields based on that. So it will record this. Yes, sir. There's nothing, it's blank, but it's mostly used for if someone wants to summarize the entire test case, because there are 10 tabs or 20 tabs to go through the scenario. So if someone wants to describe the scenario for manual validation or for easy understanding of like, yeah, it was just asked for because we want to use the same template for manual and automated tests to avoid like synchronizations and those kind of issues. So I can create as many lines for this sales order. I can add any other information I can update. Yep.
Why don't you put in the numbers we have recorded in the task recorder?
Yeah.
So it would be easier for the user to know, okay.
That's a very good question. It came a couple of times that we had a code for recording the numbers. There was a problem that in task recorder there is a bug that if we are in second line, if we change something in the first line, it doesn't say which rec ID it changed to. So we would override the customer information. So if customer in the middle of writing second line, he changed something in the first line, it will still be overwritten on the second line, and we don't want to like change the data of the customer. So it's better to record manually than having any mistake in there.
So it's more technical application.
Yeah. And also generally customers who are doing this testing, they have all the data in front of them, and they want to use for separate scenarios, the same template they want to use for separate scenarios. So when we discussed with many partners for CTP1, they said that it was not like a big thing for us. That was, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so there is the technical difference between how the header fields are modified and the grid fields are modified. So it's task recorder, whatever it records. If the header fields are modified automatically, unless there is a method being called to modify that, it will not record that. So there can be like we can add a request for the task recorder if we want to add all the fields, but the way all the grid fields will be recorded. Header fields, only the ones which we are modifying or which have been coded in a particular way, will be modified for the. Sorry, can you repeat again? Can you use the mic just so that it can be recorded as well?
Common customization would be creating a new field on customers,
yeah.
and it needs to be initialized on your sales order.
Yeah.
And then you want to test it. If you select the customer, is my field correctly initialized on the sales order?
So even if if it is automatically recorded, then it won't be a testing part, right? So I'll show how we can test that. That will be covered. The testing of those fields will be covered. Because if it is recording in the data entry part, it won't be, because this table will be used as a data entry. I'll show how we add the validation tables in there, and we can do the validations in the same. We will take that. We'll answer that question when we go to the validation part. So I enter the all. Here I can enter packing slip or all, it doesn't matter. So the other tabs were just when we went to just view some data, whether the data looks correct or not. We click the invoice journal and voucher entries, voucher transactions, to validate whether the voucher transactions are correct or not. So first what I'll do is I'll run this without the validation part, and then I'll add the validation and run it so we can cover both things. Currently, the name of the node which we have created and the name of the test case should be the same. So here is demo1, so my test Excel file name should be the same. How it runs is in the settings, in the parameters tab, we have added the test case folder path. So whichever path we are storing the test cases, I'll take from there. Sorry? Yes. Yes, because what it will do is based on that path, it will know which test to play back. So for example, when I go here and I say play back this test case, which node I am in, it will play back that. If you see there, it's a playback button. So based on the node which I am selecting, it will know that which test case to run. And if I am doing playback all, what it will do is based on the folder which we gave where the test scripts are, it will run all the folder, all the test cases, all the scripts in the folder. So for example, overnight we want to run all the sales order related or accounts receivable tests or any entire test suite, right? So we can run the entire folder, and in the morning we can see the results, how the things are and those things. So it will run everything in that folder in the order of the Windows. So Windows directory order, whichever is the setting, it will go through that order. So let's play it back. all the tests will open the new client because it will know the existing client can be in any state. So it's always better to open a new client to do the testing. It opened the sales order menu. It clicked the new sales order. Yeah.
I have the same process and I want to have a change in the form. So I want to have the same process run multiple times
Yep.
with one different parameter.
Yeah.
Then I would have to create different Excel files and changing this one parameter in all the.
That's one option. Another option is because we are using Excel and you can do all the magic in Excel. So you can write a macro and just set the macro value there, and it will be generating whatever values you can.
You are providing this macro?
No, I mean, anyone can write the script, right? So for example, when I was doing a purchase script, there has to be a product receipt number. And if I have to run the same thing again and again, I have to generate a separate product receipt number because product receipt number can't be used. So I use a random function in Excel to get the auto number generated, right? So you can, Excel has vast capabilities which we can use in addition to what is available, right? So it's creating the second line right now. Yeah. Yep. So if the setup is not being recorded as part of the, what was that? If the setup is not being recorded as part of the test, then the data has to be the same, or the test has to be data agnostic. So if you are recording, like you need a credit limit, for example, for the customers, you have to, in your test, go to the credit limit form to set the credit limit or some other parameters before. Yeah, so as long as the data is similar, so you can, once you generate the Excel template, you can copy the Excel template and play back in another. It doesn't matter. Yeah, task recorder has to be involved. Yeah, there is a data port tool which we have for migrating data from the production to test and to other systems. And it's we automate all those, and we in internal we use data port to migrate the production data to the test, and it takes like 15 minutes to just do entire data, whole database, export and import. Sorry?
I would have a test repository
Yeah.
system that I deploy on the test system.
Yes. And there is a session for the data export import tool at 2:45 today. So that can help migration of data part. But the data has to be similar, or you have to change the test for the different data set if there are different data set in the system. So right now, it went through the script which we created. We didn't do any validations. So it's now opened all the forms, and it's now closing the forms as that. And it will be recording the logs. So let's look at the logs. Let it complete. Any other questions in the meantime?
Is it integrated with TFS for defects logging?
No, not yet. No, bug logging. Yeah.
We'll have to read the logs and see which tests.
Yeah, because yes.
How does it deal, or does it deal with workflow approvals and things of that nature?
So workflow, anything which can be set up through the forms, it can deal with. So workflow has a workflow tutorial form, which we open, or if the workflow is already set, it doesn't matter. So it will deal with that because the workflow is running at the back end.
Okay, so it would record that you hit the submit button.
Yeah. And after that, the workflow has to do their thing similar in both submit in the one environment or the other environment. If you are using the workflow in production and in test, and if you are doing testing in test, during the recording, whatever process the workflow did at the backend, it has to do it. It will expect the similar thing for the second and third time as well.
Can we simulate in this scenario the user role as
it will use the user which we are logged into. If we are using a test in another, so we can't change the user in the middle. So if you are logged in by administrator or some other user, it will assume that role.
And does it work on ISP?
Yes, that's the one of the benefit of that, because it's generating the fields at runtime from the form itself, and it can have any customization. It will work on that. Yes.
Are any plans to include enterprise portal?
No. Enterprise portal, the task recorder can't record enterprise portal. So if that can't record, we can't test it. So there'll be a very huge effort to just include task recorder to make the task recorder working for enterprise portal. But so it will be comparatively little slower than what you can manually enter, and the reason is because the processes are running at runtime and entering the data, but it took like maybe 2 or 3 minutes to complete, or maybe a little bit over 3 minutes, right? So it can't be as fast as the user manually entering the data, because to make it flexible, we have to do a lot of things at runtime, and there has to be a wait for actions to happen. So it will add to some slowness, but because we don't have to like watch it while running. Mostly we will play it back during the night and see the results in the morning, or they are playing in separate system when we are working on some other systems. That was not a big like hurdle for this. We are trying to, so for the final version beta, which will release in few months, performance is one thing which we are looking at, but we are not 100% sure. We are sure that we can't match the performance of what user manually enter the data, because that is hard-coded system, everything is there. But we are trying to come as close as possible to the actual. Yes? No, it needs a focus, because it works as a user is entering the data. If it can't find the focus, it can't find the control. But if you have a secondary desktop lying there, you can just move the screen to that monitor, and it can keep running. Yes.
What happens if it runs into an error, like you have an item in the spreadsheet that doesn't exist?
Yeah. So if there is a hard error, for example, if the one you mentioned, that there is an item in spreadsheet which is removed in the form, it will throw an error and it will stop the process. But if it's a warning, or if it's an error which based on like what we are using manually, if the error don't allow us to proceed, this will stop as well. If the error throws an error and allows to proceed, it will record as a fail, and with the error message that is, for the error message came at this step, but it will complete the process. So it will behave exactly as the user is doing the things. So but then we have to go and fix the Excel sheet by removing that field. I'll show you that as well, how we do that. But if a user will get the error while entering the data, this will get the error as well. So. Oh, it's not linked with the framework. This is just the task recorder by default has APQC data imported in there, like the segment. So when we create a demo machine with the task recorder, it imports the APQC level things. Yeah. Anything which you can link through task recorder, this can be linked, because this is on top of task recorder, right? If you have a APQC, if you have a personal processing lifecycle services, you can import into task recorder. That's one of the features, right? So you can import your process, and you can just you don't have to create a node. Then you just use the same node, whichever is there, to record the test, and then it will be linked like that. So let's look at the folder. So there are two logs. One is the test log, which is a XML file, so that we can report the things into anywhere we want. And if there are 100 tests run, like a group of tests run together, it will have the list for all tests, like the name of the test and the status. And for every test, it will have a log file in the folder as well, which will define every step what happened, if there was error, whether the test case passed or failed. For example, this one here, it shows passed. When I go to the details, it goes through all the things. And there were some crowd warnings happening in between, like we saw. It is recording those as well, but because there were warnings, it's not failing the test. If there were errors, but it's still allowed to proceed, it will record the information log here, but it'll at the end the status will be test failed. So we can find out which level it is. This information I'll show how we can do that, but I'll show at the last, because generally we should not be editing it unless we know what is happening there. So I'll show how the metadata is, where the metadata is recorded for this test. So let's open the test again. There is one sheet which is hidden. Which has some metadata, and it has like which table, what are the steps were happened, like sales table list page was opened, then sales create order was opened, then there was OK button clicked, and all those things were detailed. So if the thing failed at step 5, it knows that it's the 5th row it is failing. So we know which form it is failing there as well. If a lot of things will be clear from the log itself, but if there is something which is missing in the log, we can easily relate it with this using the sheet 1. For yeah, that the first sheet which I showed was a summary of all the tests. So it will have all the 100 and say name and pass, because that's no other information recorded. And the purpose is that you might have a test case management system, MS test or something similar, where you want to record the result of the test or in the report, right? So in the XML you can generate the get the data easily. Okay, let's add some validation here. Because we already opened the form, we can directly go to the. I was interested in adding the voucher, validating the voucher transactions, and it can be anything. It can be on the existing form as well. I want to validate after adding something like you said, after adding customer, I want to validate the customer information, and I'll show in the new form how we are adding, and it's the same concept. We are adding a table for validations, and we will be giving the field names. So here I want to add validate the voucher transactions which we created for sales order. Generally, when we are creating a manual scenario, we always create a table, and most of the domain users are expert in Excel, so everyone would know how to create a table, especially in the domain side. We create any table, a blank table. And the first value has to be the key. It's a unique identifier of the row, and then other than that, we'll just add the field names, field labels which we want to validate. For example, actually, for voucher transaction, because it's a grid, we have an easier way out as well. This is generally when we have to validate a header, whether the customer transaction is being captured here or not. So we enter like key and then the customer number, and then it will validate in that form. But if we have a grid, we don't have to enter 100 rows there. We can, and if we have already validated as part of the process that these values are correct, we can go and copy from that grid directly and save some of the time. We created this. Now we'll convert this to a table, and it has created a table for us. And we'll insert a column called key and give a unique identifier, anything. Now, one thing here is that when we are running the test repeatedly, we want to have the unique values, right? Journal numbers, we can't hard code that this journal, because next time the test is run, the journal number will be changed. Or next day the test is run, the date will be changed. So we always either validate the things which are constant, which are fixed, and that's what generally we validate, or we have a sum function which gets the value and we are feeding it here. So for now, we will remove the hard-coded data, which is like the changing data, and this is a constant data which will be there. Of course, the transactions are calculated at runtime, but for this particular scenario, for the 2 lines with $100 with 10% discount, we know that the result has always need to be the same. So it's a constant value for this particular scenario. So for a different scenario, we'll have a fixed set of expected result, right? So expected result is always fixed for that particular scenario. So we can validate anything. In the customer side, we'll just enter the customer number here, and we get that. One thing which we have to do is we have to tell this in the table name. If you see at the top corner here, this we have to give the table name. That's around the top left corner. There is a table name there. We have to give validate underscore, and so before I show the name, I'll show if it was a grid table, it had a name as form grid control. If it is a header type of table like create sales order, it will have the name of the actual form. So that's how it differentiates whether it's a grid or actual form. So if we are validating something on the form, we'll give the name as validate underscore the form name. If we are validating something in the grid, we'll say validate underscore form grid control. And if there are multiple grids we want to validate, we can say form grid control 1, 2, 3. It doesn't matter. It will validate all those things. So now when it comes here, it knows that it needs to validate this table and not insert or do any other action. So and we have added the validate data. Let's run this now. We have saved this. Data entry was very fast. Validation will be slower because we have to convert the data types for validation, because Boolean has to be converted to a Boolean to check whether it's a true or false. We can't just check it's true or false. During insert, we can easily enter the data much better. So there is some delay there. But good thing is generally the validation in one scenario is once or twice. We are not doing validation on every form mostly in a scenario. Yes?
So is there documentation for this tool?
Yes. So it is available on CTP on the Connect website. There will be a link on the during the end of the in the slide as well. And there is in the package there is a document. We will be adding videos too for how to use different types of scenarios. And of course, from the feedback Connect program, we'll be replying all the questions which are asked. Yes.
So are there any plans for the future versions to fill the last sheet for the validation automatically from the client? Because most of the information you put manually, you have already on the screen.
Yes, but we don't know what the user wants to validate. Like there's a whole form. I don't know whether the user wants to validate a customer number or the entire sales order form or something, right? So the user will always have to enter this is what the validation part I'm interested in.
So being in this example, there is one grid, and so my assumption would be that the user wants to validate the values within this grid, so all the steps can be automated.
That is in the grid, you can have that assumption, but there was a previous grid when we opened the invoice voucher. First we went to the journal and then we clicked the voucher button, right? We didn't validate anything in the grid. So similarly, if the user go to the sales order list page tab to validate something from there, that list page tab will be empty as well. How will we know that the user was validating the list page tab or not? There is a grid. It's, because user is not doing any action there. It's just sitting and validating. So its user has to enter this validation information. And generally the validation is very limited. user after the end of the scenario, user validate whether this action completed correctly, this data was corrected or not, right? So it's not very difficult to enter the data. It takes like less than half a minute, and once we have created the template, we can use it again and again, right?
Because my point is I'm working very much with business departments, and I'm not sure if they will get done to fill all this information required for the validation.
Generally, when we create a test scenario, we always define what is the expected output of this test, right? Otherwise, that is not a test. If a test doesn't define what I'm expecting, then it's not a test. So they will have it defined. It's about entry, and there won't. This is sales order is the most complex validation because it creates a lot of inventory transaction cost transactions as well, and there are 10 transactions. And if it is a grid, we can easily copy paste, right? We don't if we have validated this scenario that these values are correct, then we can easily copy paste. But if I start copying for every grid which we pass through, we will have 100 more grids during the process which are not needed for validation. So yeah, it entered all the data. It's yes.
What will happen? It will stop?
No, it will validate everything in the log. It will say that this validation of this row failed. Expected value was this, actual value is this, and the result will be failed, but it will pass to the others. So that if you have entered at 3 places it is wrong, it will capture all the 3 ones, so that you can fix it at once instead of having to run it again and find that, oh, next row is now failing and next row is failing. So, and we can take that example as well. In the Excel, we'll change the value and run it. Yes?
Can I define a automated test execution and define a test or regression test for what or not?
So regression test means you want to run on every build, and you can create separate folders and stop working. Okay. We'll run it again and see. So what was your? So yeah, you can create separate. Yeah. So because that you have to write another piece of code, because this can be executed from command prompt or anywhere. By default, we have integrated into task recorder, but because it's an exe, it takes a parameter of the folder path with the node name or a test case name. If you're just running a folder path, you can just call that exe with the folder, and you can create your own scenario to run these dates test every day, like per date. Yeah, or you have a separate date-based test, you can call them. Let's run this again. First, let's look at the log. Log is not recorded because it was failed. It crashed in the middle. But this will be recorded. It was in the validation part where it failed. It probably failed at the system level. So let's have a look. Let's try running it again. Must be some. I'll clear the. Well, that's okay. I can run them again from here. Yes. So when we are creating a two sales order manually, we go through the process like create sales order form, sales order form, and then go back to the create sales order form and we click the new sales order button. So when we do the same thing here, it will create separate tabs. So we can't use the same template to create two sales order, anything, because there will be separate tabs when we are doing the recording. But if it's on the same form, for example, chart of accounts, currencies, or anything which is on the same form, we can use the same tab there, because it knows that. But if it has to move from different tabs, it's difficult to like tell that there are two separate sales orders doing that. We have a prototype for that working as well, that part where we can do that, but it's not like fully baked yet to release. Yes. Sorry? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you want to use a previous order number, right? So there is a feature which is added here. We say we can store the value. So in the Excel itself, we say, and this will be in the. Oops. Okay, good. It'll take the focus, and so in the same Excel we can add that constant like variable this and the name of the thing. So we can use the same variable name in the future sheets. Yeah. Yes. In the sales order case, you know that number when you are creating the sales order line. So sales order number is generated when you are on the create sales order form. Then you go to the sales order detail form where you enter the line. That time the number is already there. So if you add a constant there, the value is there. So it will saved in that variable. Yes, I'll show you how we do that. Yes. So print management form means where we like when we are doing the printing. Print managed form we haven't tested. We tested on sys query form where we enter the data like filters and those things to generate the reports. Print management form, I haven't tested, so I can't comment. But what we do internally is we always have default printer set up for actual printer. So it will keep printing as the time it's processing. So if I was printing a packing slip, I had a check mark there, it will print to the default printer. And it will, we can validate the printouts at the end of the run. Again, in our scenarios, in test scenarios, we haven't tested yet batch job scheduler, but I believe that it is recorded. No, whichever is logged in as a user, it will be run under that security role. So in the AX, if I am logged in as my name Harmeet, then it will be running as that user, and we can't change the user in between the scenario. So one scenario will be validated. Yes. Yes. There is one requirement, I think, that for SQL they have to have particular access, but that is documented as well. But generally, recording will always be something is going on. We have to validate. What it will go is it will go to the first line and then start validating the fields. I can log into another machine to give a demo if we still have time. But yes.
How does it react to missing access rights? So I have a demo script where a user does not have the access to the invoice form.
Okay. So basically, you have recorded with some other user which had access, and now you are running with the user which don't have access.
Actually, I want it to throw an error
Yeah, it because it can't find the form, because it behaves everything as the user is doing. So if it can't find the form on the screen, it can't find the button or it can't find the form, it will throw an error. Sorry?
It is a way of the privilege the user have.
Yes.
Can I define this as a positive test case? Because if you can't find the form, it doesn't actually.
No, it will fail, because if there is an error, it will fail, but you know that this was expected to be fail for this reason, so you will know that. It will be able to validate that, but you can't record it as passed even if there is an error. Yeah, no. So actually, you know what? So let's see. So for answering that question on the saving of sales order, let me open that. So at this point, when is the sales order number generated, right? And then when I'm entering the sales order information here, I already have the sales order number. So here I will create a table for variable. And give the name of the table will be variable, and we give the name of the column I want to store, like customer number, variable name, any name, like sales order number, and then it will store the value. Yeah, and then you can just in the data enter, you just add this parameter. Yeah. So let me log into another machine. Come on, it's there. So we can run this here. I will first add the test one. Now I'm in sales order. Because I want to fill in the actual expected values for this one here in this. It always happens when you test the same thing 10 minutes before the demo and it works, and in the demo it crashes. So while we are doing this, let me switch and show how you can get the tool, and then we can come back to this. So there's a link here. You can get registered for the Connect program, and it's a CTP2 version. These slides will be published on the website. So when we click on this link, we get registered to the terms and conditions and stuff. We get registered, and then we are able to download the tool. After downloading the tool, there's a document in there as well which explains how to use that, how we can how we use the system, and how to report the feedback. So there is a feedback process, how to install. Installation is very simple. It's an MSI which has few DLLs and an EXE, and we just have to give the install path as client bin so that it copies the correct files in the client bin folder, and also it will create a business process testing folder. And if we want to use, for example, some other users don't have access to the client bin folder, and a lot of times customers request that the users don't have access to write into the client bin folder. So what they can do is, after installing, they can copy the business process testing folder and move it anywhere where everyone has access to, and just change the path in the parameters in task recorder, and they should be able to use it. Yes.
Can I say anything about the roadmap for this tool? So we could integrate all the results of the import or upload them to the lifecycle services and so on to see which was the result per process. Something like this. Is there a roadmap for this?
So currently the goal is, after receiving the feedback for this second version, we'll incorporate as much as we can and release the first beta in few months. And the roadmap is not to get the results into the LCS yet, but because we have XML in there, we are per test case we are storing all the XML, like the name and the thing. Users can incorporate that as well, and I can speak to LCS team and see if if there's a possibility to do that, because the XML is already there. We have the information. It's just about the priorities of different teams we have to integrate.
So I could imagine this would be a great benefit to see per process what was the result, and then I have the general overview about all my business processes and what was the last status of the last test runs I had.
Yeah. Yeah, there'll be huge benefit, but one of the things which multiple people told us is not to integrate with one particular thing, because some use MS test, some use now a lot of people are using LCS as there's significant development happened in LCS, but some are using still their own in-house test management softwares and stuff. So that's why the goal is to have a XML. But point taken that we can sync up and if with the LCS team, and if that's feasibility, we can incorporate that for beta. Yes. No, there is no process available as of yet. Yeah, so one of the feedback which I got at AXUG was that have common session, like common placeholder where everyone can incorporate their scenarios. So partners, ISVs, Microsoft can add to the scenarios for the different processes, and everyone can use that. We are thinking that we might be able to ship few standard processes with the beta, like order to cash, procure to pay, those kind of standard processes. Yes, but before we go, I'll show you how to change the data, change the field. So if the field was removed in the newer version, or if the field was added to the newer version, that is one of the key requirements as well. I'll go back to the previous version, and this will run at last. Come on. Okay. So this is the test. Suppose I added a new field called product life cycle or item life cycle, whether it's on hold or status of the item. So all I have to, if you see here, the name of the thing is the label which we see on the field, and the name of the container. And the container here is a grid, because a lot of the times the same field can be in the header and the grid. So to differentiate where the field is to enter the data in the right field, we are storing both the name of the container and the label. So if it's a grid, it will have the name of the grid. If it's a header form, it will have the name of the control, because in header you can have, and we have seen a lot of forms where warehouse is at two places with this. One for expectation is one is a ship warehouse, one is the receive warehouse in the item, but the label is a warehouse only. So to differentiate, we are for header forms we are using the name of the field as a container, and for grid we are using the name of the grid. So if the user if in the newer version we added a status field for this, which is a mandatory field or which we want to enter the data to, instead of recording the template again, we just add a new field, or if there is a field which you are not using, we can change that. I can just add here. So I'll say status and sales line grid, which is the name of the grid here, and the field is added. That's the customization which we need if the new field is added. If in the previous question, the question was when if the fields are removed, will it throw an error? If it will throw an error, and the user will have to go here and remove the field because that is not part of the system anymore, and that's it. This is a customization we need for removing a field or adding a field. The goal was to make it easy so that developer don't need to do anything to add a field or remove a field when the product is changing. The domain users can do that by themselves. So this is how we add or remove the field. Any question around that? Okay, let's quickly generate that another one, and then we'll be done. So it is $100 and $200. I just want to copy the same values. Yeah. I won't need this sales order number because now it is auto generated. When I was writing this scenario, it was being manually entered. It was set to manual for some reason. I go to journal. Okay. Insert table with headers. I'll just change it to key because I'm not using this. I'll remove the voucher number. Change the name to and if we see the name is the same here, form grid control, I can copy it just for my spellings are correct. Okay, and we can run this. Okay, we are in sales order 1. Play back. Let's see. Okay. Yes, sir.
From which version was this external
R2 CU7. Yeah, and R3 and R3 CU8. This is available. Sorry? Yes, sir. That's not available now. That was a question earlier as well. So the question is that can we have the data as part of the template as well? And the reason we are not having is a technical limitation right now is that if the user is recording a second line or third line, and if we change the first line, the task recorder, there is no way to identify which row it is changed. So if we were to record the template based on the user entry, we would override the third record with the data you wanted to use for the first record. So to avoid those kind of changes, we said let the user enter the data which they want to validate, and that's the limitation which we have not added. It would work for most of the scenarios, like user is entering one row, it works all the time. 2 rows, if the user is not changing the first row, it works. But we don't want to incorporate something which can cause those kind of problems. It's still set to manual entry. Let's see if the system is sent to manual entry. Okay. Sales order. No, it's set to manual. That's fine. Well, so I guess we can stop here, and you can download and run it, and we'll probably add the templates eventually for generic scenarios, which will have the data. So we'll stop the session here. I'll just run this same scenario again, just for the last time. And we'll let it run, and in the meantime, thank you for attending the session. I hope you like the tool. Thank you.